Hey guys, so today we are going to talk about rhetoric and go through different aspects of rhetoric, characteristics of it, talk about what it is to basically prepare you for the 6 weeks as we are going to be focusing very heavily on the idea of rhetoric and analyzing things from a rhetorical perspective. Rhetoric is an argument, and everything pretty much is an argument. So, what is rhetoric? It's the art of effective, persuasive speaking. Anytime you're making an argument of any kind, you are employing rhetoric, whether you realize it or not. Anything from asking your mom if you can go to a party and trying to talk her into it, to writing a persuasive paper and trying to convince someone of your stance. It is a form of rhetoric. So, with rhetoric, there are 3 types of appeals. And I do say appeals in your writing, you're going to want to say things like the author uses ethos or uses pathos. That is actually incorrect. You should not say it that way. You should say that they appeal to ethos or they appeal to pathos or they appeal to logos. That being said, I can already hear you guys in the back, like in the back of my head. I realize at some point you may have had a teacher that taught you that it is ethos and pathos. That is 100% incorrect. If you do not believe me, Google it. I only stress this because I don't want you to sound uneducated as you get older. They are Greek or Latin words, and they are pronounced, to be exact, they're actually pronounced ethos and pathos and logos. So that is the actual pronunciation of the word. So if you don't believe me, please look it up. Please use it correctly in your writing and in your speech. So to go through each of the 3 appeals, we'll start with ethos. Ethos is all about credibility. This is when a speaker gets up in front of an audience and he gives the audience background information about himself so that the audience will trust and believe in him. There are instances where ethos is not needed. For instance, when you go to church and your preacher or your priest starts talking about the sermon, you don't need your preacher or your priest or wherever you go to church. You don't need them to say, well, guys, I've got this kind of degree and in theology, and I've taught or I've preached at this many different churches for this many years. You trust him. He is your preacher. So ethos is not something that he needs or needs to appeal to in order to get you to believe what he is saying. However, many speakers don't have that luxury. For instance, if I were to walk into your math class and start teaching you math, it's very possible that I would need to give you some kind of background as to why you should listen to me. And in math, I would definitely not recommend listening to me. But some speakers automatically have this and some speakers don't. So it's definitely in situations where you see the speaker, the rhetorician, giving information about their background, about why they should be trusted or why they should be listened to. That is always an appeal to ethos. And sometimes it can be implied, maybe something that a speaker does. Maybe they come up and they gently set down their degrees off to the side before they start speaking. That is a form of ethos. It's subtle and it's not spoken, but it's definitely there. When you attack an opponent's reputation and you are calling them weak or you are attacking them in how they are, you see this a lot in politics. This is known as ad hominem, and it is an appeal to ethos as well. It's a very negative appeal, but it's the idea that you shouldn't listen to them because they don't know. Oftentimes, this appeal has no logical aspect behind it. It's just, well, they are an idiot. They don't know.
ماشي
Hey kid,
Kobe Bryant.
Would you like to have some ice cream, young man?
Ice cream?
Two. The best fly with Europe's best airline.
So this is an appeal to ethos in multiple ways. Obviously, the speakers are, it's very subtle. They don't come out and say why you should listen to them. Much of the ethos is implied, but they do employ their basketball skills and their soccer skills to remind you subtly of why you should trust these two guys, why they would know the best. They are the best, so they would know the best, so you can trust them. So of course, it is definitely an appeal to ethos. Now, we will get in a little bit later to the idea of an expert in something versus somebody who just appeals to ethos and tries to make you believe you should trust them and how that whole thing works. But for now, you get the basic idea. It's whenever the speaker, they can see you. I mean, I know sorry, my daughter just walked in. I know you don't realize it, but they can see you in the background.
I'm fine with that. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I was just telling you. Yeah. Anyway, it's whenever the speaker wants you to understand why you should trust them, and they do subtle things like what you see here. You see them messing with or you see Kobe Bryant playing with the basketball, and you see Messi with his soccer ball, and it's a subtle reminder of these guys are the best. You should trust them. You should believe what they say. They know the best. So in review, ethos once again is whenever you depend on the credibility or the expertise to a certain degree. It doesn't have to be true expertise, but believed expertise in something that in the speaker. Okay. One more thing also, just as a review, you don't say that you use ethos, you say you appeal to ethos. I can't stress that enough. I'm going to stress it a lot through the video. So, just keep that in mind as you go through. So another appeal in rhetoric is the emotional appeal. This is pathos. This is literally, it is emotions. When it is the easiest one to recognize, and it is also probably the most overused form of appeal. The idea that you play on people's emotions and you get to them to do what you want them to do because they react emotionally. This is when you bring up stuff that makes the speaker feel sadness, feel pity, feel guilt, feel compassion, feel loved. This is that moment on the movie when your mom starts crying or your girlfriend looks over at you and says, "Oh," that kind of moment. That is an appeal to pathos.
Big windows and lots of light.
I don't understand. Did I do something wrong? Are you breaking up with me?
Slow and steady.
Trans, the official sudden vantage spectacles.
So this ad, it uses pathos in the typical way that it is used as a form of propaganda, which we will get into propaganda later. So I wouldn't stress too much about that right now. We'll get more into it so that you understand it more. But essentially, you have this emotional idea between this girl and her dog. Right off the bat, you're like, oh my goodness. And at the very end of it, it's kind of the end of the dog's life. She's at the vet, or really that's the very beginning. And then you have a lot of flashbacks. And very subtly, with each flashback with the dog, they continuously throw in the fact that the car is always there, that vehicle. I some kind of Chevy SUV. But they want you to make an emotional connection between the feelings you have for her love and her bond with this dog to that car. If you keep seeing the love and the bond, the dog's there through this and the dog's there through that. The dog's there when she goes through a breakup, and the dog's there when this happens, and the dog's there when she gets her first kiss, and the dog's there when she's little bitty, or maybe not little bitty, but younger, and she first encounters it. But subtly in the background, so is the SUV. So it wants you to make that emotional connection of the SUV is always there for you, kind of the same way the dog is. Yes, I realize it is ridiculous, but in a large degree, that is just propaganda in and of itself. It's also a form of rhetoric, of course, because you have this idea that they're trying to persuade you to buy this car, and they're using emotion to get you to do so. So in review, pathos is emotional. You got ethos, that is all about the credibility of the speaker, telling you background information about the speaker, maybe their degree, maybe their experience, maybe why you should trust them. And then you have pathos, which is the emotional appeal. It's that emotional aspect to the whole situation. Finally, you have logos. Logos is the logical appeal. This is facts, valid points, inferences, statistics. Of course, you always need to be careful of logos. People have a tendency to believe that logos means that it's true, but facts can be skewed, and definitely statistics. Statistics can be 100% skewed. So you've got to be very, very careful of how logos is perceived. You automatically think, oh, it's a fact, I can trust it. But not necessarily. And it is manipulated in the exact same way that you've seen both ethos and pathos be manipulated to sell you stuff and get you to do stuff. In order to spot that appeal to logos, notice anything that could be factual. Definitions, what something means, the essential nature of something, the features that something have. They start describing its characteristics and telling you what seems factual information about it. That is 100% going to be a logos appeal. Analogies or comparisons fall in the realm of logos appeals. And of course, testimony from authority figures typically are logos appeals. Now, when I say testimony from authority figures, let's just be clear here. You just saw this commercial where Kobe Bryant and Messi talked to you about the idea, in a sense, of this is the best. I know the best, and this is the best airline. And they do this by appealing to ethos through their ability in their sport. Hence Kobe Bryant with the basketball and Messi with the soccer ball. But in the end, all three of them, Kobe Bryant, Messi, and the kid, listen to the stewardess because she would be the true expert. And so, in all honesty, that aspect of the the ad would be an appeal to logos. When it talks about the idea of citing experts here, keep in mind they mean true experts, not people that are appealing to ethos to get you to trust them, but people who are considered experts in their field. That would be a form of logos. So this is like, I don't know, y'all won't know who Sigmund Freud is, but a famous psychologist who's written lots of psychology books giving you information about psychology. That would be an appeal to logos. Or when you cite a source, like you pull in another source in your essay or your analysis and you say, well, according to National Geographic, that is appeal to logos, because National Geographic would be considered, or the History Channel, whatever, would be considered an expert in the field of history.
While you're
3G coverage works so well on Verizon Wireless? There's a map for that. Or why you can watch videos at 3G speed almost anywhere? There's a map for that. And if you want to know why some people have spotty 3G coverage, there's a map for that too. Yup, with 5 times more 3G coverage than the nation's #2 wireless company, there's lots of reasons to switch to Verizon Wireless. Come in now for great deals on 3G phones, like the Samsung Rogue for $99.99.
All right, so this commercial may have made you laugh. It is pretty dated. It's pretty old. However, I would argue that Verizon still uses this same logos appeal to this day. They want to tell you about their maps, and they want to tell you about statistics. 5 million people do this, and this percentage of people do that. This is an appeal to logos. When they start throwing out what seems like these logical, factual ideas, they're trying to get you through logos. So definitely pay attention to that kind of stuff. So as a review, you have 3 forms of rhetorical appeal. You have ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos is when the speaker gives you information about themselves that makes you feel as though you can trust them. It can be verbally stated, or it could possibly be inferred or implied through things they do or things they carry or ways that they act or dress or something of that nature. For instance, if you're going to a hunting convention and you wore camo, that would be an appeal to ethos. You have appeal to pathos, which is anything emotional. If it's talking about children, babies, families, love, anything emotional, then that's an appeal to pathos. And then finally, logos, which that appeal has to do with facts and statistics. Once again, I cannot stress enough how much logos can be skewed. So please don't assume just because someone uses facts that it's actually true. When you're giving a speech or you are appealing to someone rhetorically, there's always an exigence. The exigence is the problem. It is the issue that has pushed you to give this speech. It's not the same thing as purpose. Purpose and exigence are different. Exigence is what has made you feel this desire to say something. Maybe there are a bunch of battered women in your neighborhood and you've seen several abused women or women get beat up and their husbands get arrested on your block. And so you create an advertisement or you do a lemonade sale to earn money to help them. That exigence would be battered women. That is what's pushing you to try and do something about it. The purpose, that could be totally different. Maybe your purpose is to persuade. Maybe your purpose is to entertain. We'll get to that. But exigence is like the idea behind it. It is the urgency, the problem, the need that must be met. The purpose itself, that's more like the pulling force. So I say, okay, I have seen all these women get beat up on, in my neighborhood and their husbands get arrested. So my exigence is to save battered women. That's what I want to do. That's my driving force. But that's what's pushing me. But I need to find a way to do that. So my purpose or the way in which I do that is through persuasion, or really persuasion. If I'm trying to sell you something, lemonade, I'm trying to persuade you to buy my lemonade. So that is the difference between exigence and purpose. Exigence is that reasoning. Purpose is that way to reach your goal, I guess you would say. You essentially have 3 types of purpose. However, I would add in 2 more types. The basic types are, as you've heard from since you were younger, persuade, inform, and entertain. But you also have a simple just to describe with like an expository essay, and to inspire, which means you're not just trying to persuade them, you're trying to really reach them soulfully, and it goes just a little bit step further. I will not spend a lot of time talking about author's purpose, just so you know. Our real goal will be exigence more than purpose. The audience. So this is super important, and you guys need to start seeing this a lot. I wrote this a lot on your essays. We haven't gone back to your essays yet, so we haven't talked about this. But it is very, very important that you start recognizing the audience. You or anyone would speak completely different to a group of second graders than you would to, say, a group of your teachers. Your attitude would be different. Your word choice would be different. Your dress, your demeanor would be different. Everything about the whole presentation would change based off those two groups. So whenever you're looking at speeches or you're looking at informational text, you always need to consider the audience. You also need to remember that a lot of times the audience is inferred, meaning it's not going to be outwardly stated for you. The speaker is not going to say, okay, I'm here today to address these second graders about drug use or not using drugs. They're not going to do that kind of stuff. I mean, every once in a while you do have that in speeches, but it's rare. Most of the time the audience is implied or inferred based off the time period or when and where the speech is given. So, or the text is distributed. If it's like informational text, is it something that's going to have a longevity that's going to last forever? Or is it something that's just going to last in this little bitty time frame? Did the writer know that their essay was going to be read 30 years later? Or did the writer just kind of see it as, I'm addressing this particular group? So always consider the audience. Who are the readers? Who are the people that are being addressed? What's their age, their background? What do they believe? What's their education? What are their interests? It's just like I told you about the appeal to ethos and going to the Hunters Convention in camo. That's knowing your audience, because your audience would be dressed in camo as well, very possibly. Then, of course, you have organization. There are different styles of organization: chronological, compare and contrast, order of importance, sequence, spatial, cause and effect, and problem and solution. Spatial is probably the only one that I've ever really seen students not know. Spatial is when you break things out through space, essentially. Through, maybe you have a paragraph up here at the top left that gives this idea and tells you this information. And then, you've got a little arrow and a little circle over here that tells you this information. And it's kind of almost like a graphic organizer. That would be a sense of spatial organization. Chronological, of course, it goes in order. It's very similar to sequence. Chronological goes based off steps, like step 1, step 2, step 3. Sequence doesn't necessarily have to go off steps. It goes off of when things occurred. Compare and contrast, exactly what it sounds. Order of importance, same idea. Put it by the importance of or how important it is. Cause and effect, and of course, problem and solution. Cause and effect are different than problem and solution because of the fact that with problem and solution, the speaker presents you with a problem, like we'll take our battered women's thing from earlier, and they give you a solution to it. They say, well, we've got this battered women's problem, and I think the solution to this would be to hire more police officers and educate women. That's problem solution. Cause and effect is more, we have this battered women issue, and because of it, we've got an overloading of shelters. So you don't offer a solution to the problem. You just tell what the effect of that solution is. And it is important that you pay attention to how things are organized, because it does matter. Of course, diction, I'm not going to go into this a whole lot. I think at this point you should be getting diction, the idea of word choice. You have formal, informal, colloquial, which is like everyday use. That's when I say, hey guys, what's up? That kind of stuff. Or, hey, how are you doing? Slang is when you use truly slang words. If I walk into the classroom and I say, all right, I've got to tell you something, no cap. Okay, that's slang. Your average person is not going to have any clue what I said because they don't know what no cap is. As a matter of fact, I had to be taught what no cap was last year. Thank you to Nia Johnson. But that's what you have going on there. And then, of course, formal and informal, that should be pretty obvious. Informal is when you just talk to someone in everyday language, and formal is when you're more yes, sir, no, sir type thing. Syntax, this is when you look at the actual sentence structure of the piece. A perfect example is Yoda. Much to learn, you still have. This flips the sentence instead of saying you still have much to learn, and it flips it backwards. The best way to identify syntax is with patterns. For instance, MLK or Martin Luther King Jr., perfect example. I have a dream that, da-da-da-da. I have a dream that, da-da-da-da. This repetition is not just in the wording, it's also in the syntactical structure. Meaning he starts off with that subject and the verb and then, continues on with direct object. The actual structure of the sentence is the same as just the repetition aspects of it. And he repeats that structure throughout, not just with repeating I have a dream, but with repeating that syntactical structure all the way through. Typically, strategies to find syntactical structure, like I said, pay attention to patterns, phrases, things that are repeated, anything like that. If you notice a lot of specific types of punctuation, maybe lots of question marks, lots of dashes, lots of exclamation points, or even lots of periods, that is a syntactical choice and you need to address it. Types of reasoning, you have two types of reasoning, deductive and inductive. Inductive reasoning is different than deductive. In one basic idea. Inductive reasoning is where you make a general conclusion based off of things that you see. Okay? If I say every day Damien is late. So I'm going to make a general conclusion that he's going to be late tomorrow. That's inductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning is when you take factual information and you make a factual conclusion based off of that factual information. So I say, okay, fact, every day Damien's alarm goes off at 7:55, and this causes him to be late. If I know that his alarm goes off at 7:55, that is a fact, then I can make a factual conclusion that Damien will be late tomorrow because of when his alarm goes off. Not just because of general observations I make, but because of a factual idea that I use to make a factual conclusion.
Think about this real-world problem. To estimate the population of a town in upcoming years, one of the town workers collected populations from past years and made this table. So they have years starting with 1950 going up by increments of 10 years, and they figure out the population of the town in each of those years. The town wants to estimate the population for 2015, 2018, and 2020. To do this, will you be using inductive reasoning or deductive reasoning? Now, before answering that, let's just think about what inductive reasoning is and what deductive reasoning is. Inductive reasoning is looking for a pattern or looking for a trend. So it's looking for a trend or a pattern and then generalizing. You could imagine it's kind of extrapolating the information you have, generalizing. Deductive reasoning is taking some set of data or some set of facts and using that to come up with deducing some other facts that you know are true. When you generalize, you don't know necessarily whether the trend will continue, but you assume it will. You don't know 100% it'll be true. With deductive reasoning, you know it'll be true. You're starting with facts, and then you're deducing other facts from those facts, other facts that you know are true. Now, when the town is estimating, and that's a kind of a clue that they're not going to know the exact population for 2015, 2018, and 2020, but when they estimate the population for these years are in the future. They don't know what the population will be in those years. The best they can do is see the trend of growth here, maybe see what percentage it's growing every 10 years, or what the absolute number of growth is every 10 years, and maybe they can continue that trend out to 2015, 2018, and 2020. So they'll be looking for a trend in growth over this 60-year period, and then they'll generalize it out to these years. So this will be inductive reasoning.
If you're getting tired, don't worry. We're almost to the end, okay? So a form of deductive reasoning, which we will talk a lot about, is syllogism. Syllogism is when you take a fact, okay, and you take another fact and you pair them together, but instead of coming up with a factual conclusion, you end up coming up with a more generalized conclusion. It's actually a part of what's considered a logical fallacy group. So as an example, you take the idea that all crows are black and all birds in my backyard are black. Both could be facts, right? Or are facts. So all the birds in my backyard are crows. This, in fact, does not work, right? All crows are black, fact. All birds in my backyard, fact. But are they necessarily all crows? No, because we know there's other birds. This is a very good example of how appeals to logos can be skewed, like I was telling you about earlier. You can take factual information and make it seem like it works, but in all actuality, it doesn't. So definitely watch out for syllogisms. We will be working with them more as the year goes along. Anecdotes. I'm not going to spend long on this. This is a brief story. We've talked about these before with your AP terms. It's kind of like a story within a story. It's when a narrator, character, speaker gives you a short little something or other. They say, oh, when I was a kid, I did da-da-da-da. Paradox. This is when something does not seem possible, but it is. Like Pinocchio here. My nose will grow now. If Pinocchio's nose only grows when he lies, and he's telling the truth that his nose is going to grow, then would his nose grow? Seems like it wouldn't, right? Or it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It's almost impossible for it to be both things, but yet we know this happens. We know we have times in our lives where it's both the best and the worst. So that is at its core a paradox, something that doesn't seem possible, but it is. Let's see if I can make this play.
Someone has been changing my marks. What a horrible place this is. It's not fair.
That's right. It's not fair. But that's only half of it.
This was a dead end a minute ago.
No, that's the dead end behind you.
It keeps changing. What am I supposed to do?
Well, the only way out of here is to try one of these doors. One of them leads to the castle at the center of the labyrinth, and the other one leads to certain death.
Which one is which?
We can't tell you.
Why not?
We don't know. But they do.
Oh, then I'll ask them.
No, you can't ask us. You can only ask one of us. It's in the rules. And I should warn you that one of us always tells the truth and one of us always lies. That's a rule too. He always lies.
I do not. I tell the truth.
Oh, what a lie.
He's the liar.
All right. Answer yes or no. Would he tell me that this door leads to the castle?
What do you think? Yes?
Then the other door leads to the castle and this door leads to certain death.
How do you know? He could be telling the truth.
But then you wouldn't be. So if you told me that he said yes, I know the answer is no.
But I could be telling the truth.
But then he would be lying. So if you told me that he said yes, I know the answer would still be no.
Wait a minute. Is that right? I don't know. I've never understood it.
No, it's right. I figured it out. I can never do it before. I think I'm getting smarter. It's a piece of cake.
So that is a paradox. And you would think she doesn't figure it out, but she actually does. So if you break down what she does, the answer yes, she says answer yes or no. Because she limits them to those two choices, she's able to break the paradox, the issue she has with the doors. She asks door A if he would tell me that this door leads to the castle. So you take it and you look at it. Let's say that door A is the liar, right? Because one of them lies and one of them tells the truth. If door A is the liar, he says no, right? Nope, he won't. Well, door A is lying, which means that door A won't say no. Door A will say yes. Door A leads to the castle because door B is the truth teller. But let's take it one step further. Let's say that door A is the truth teller. If door A is the truth teller and he says no, door B won't say that door A leads to the castle, then door A is telling the truth and door B won't say that door A leads to the castle, but door B will be lying. So he'll say, nope, door A doesn't lead to the castle, but because we know he's lying, once again, door A still leads to the castle. This is what's known as the liar's paradox. It is very hard to understand, but essentially, when you come across that idea where something doesn't seem possible, but it is a paradox. Then, of course, you have an apostrophe. This is when you talk to inanimate objects, and I don't mean you talk to yourself. You talk to inanimate objects. I've actually been known to do this. Have you ever seen your mother talk to her car? She says, oh, come on, whatever she's named her car. You can do it. Or somebody kick their foot on a chair and say, thanks a lot, chair. That is an apostrophe. Antithesis is when you take two opposite ideas and you pair them together in a contrasted way in speech. Write quickly, you will never write well. Write well, and you will never write quickly. And then finally, some final few terms. I'm not going to spend a long time on them. You have a red herring, a rhetorical question, which you should know, and an enthymeme. A red herring is when you use something to distract the audience. So maybe they ask about school safety, and you say, yeah, school safety can be a really, big issue today. As a matter of fact, I, heard about a situation in a school shooting where a kid pulled a fire alarm, and fire alarms are often faulty instruments. And then you just go off in a tangent about fire alarms. That is a red herring because that's not what you're supposed to be focused on. And a rhetorical question is when you ask questions you don't want answered. And of course, an enthymeme is very similar to a syllogism, but you leave out that middle idea. So instead of having two facts to get a general conclusion, you essentially have a one in which you have one or more statements of a syllogism are left out. So like, we need laws to control the sale of guns. That's not a fact, right? Many innocent people are getting killed. Well, that is a fact. So you have a general idea and a fact paired together. What is the unstated assumption here? What aspect of the syllogism is missing? Well, the second fact is missing as to whether or not the sale of guns actually, the control of sale actually causes these innocent people to be killed because they may not be related. All right, guys. That's it. That's all I've got for you. I know this was a long video, so I appreciate you hanging in there. I highly recommend that you print these rhetorical notes so that you have them for future use. Okay? All right, and I will see you in the next video.